Good morning. Hi, this is Frank Messina, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the October 4th, 2022 meeting of the Chatham Historical Commission. We have a few announcements to make. Please note, this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chairman. Seeing none. Pursuant to Governor Baker's July 6, 2022 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extension of his March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General 30A 20, until March 31st, 2023, this meeting of the Chatham Historical Commission is being conducted both in person and via remote participation, and shall afford adequate alternate means of public access via Microsoft Teams by calling the phone number 508-945-4410, conference ID 696-876-958, hashtag, or by joining the meeting online via Microsoft Teams via the link in the posted agenda. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post the record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. Okay, the first order of business is roll call. We have two members of the commission who are participating remotely, and the rest of the commission members are here. Bob Lear?
Here.
Steve Burlingame?
Here.
Ben Solmazinski?
Here.
Stephanie Hamilton?
Here.
I'm sorry, and I apologize. Jane Moffett?
Here.
Don Aikman?
Here.
Alternate Sandy Porter?
Here.
And alternate Janet Tennyson?
Here.
And the chair is here. So we have a full 7 members of the commissions. So the alternate members will can participate, but will not be voting on the applications. Ben and Steve, I believe you were absent at the last meeting, so I assume you looked. There really would nothing happen. The meeting, both of the applications were continued, so I don't see any issues or problems with you continuing to deliberate and vote today, if that in fact is the subject.
In fact, I was participating in the meeting, not fully because my
That's right.
camera
Okay.
was not working.
Okay, the next order of business is the minutes of September 20, 2022. Everybody has a copy. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at them.
Frank, I just have one minor comment. Christina, on the third page, in the middle of the status of a current administrative reviews, I don't think it matters in this case, but we've got 2 cases that were reviewed, and it doesn't identify the vote for each one, although it happened to be identical. See what I mean? Okay.
I mean, 122 Street and 22 Pleasant.
Right, but on the vote, it doesn't say what
Oh,
we were voting on.
okay.
But
You want to just get that? Thank you very much, Christina. All right, if there are no other, yes, I'm sorry.
If you look at the minutes, the second line, it says that there were 7 people here, but there are only 6 names. The line going September 6th is amended, voting aye, Messina, Lear, Porter, Aikman, I can't pronounce your last name, Hamilton, 7, and that's only 6.
Excuse me, which page are you on?
The first page, where it says minutes.
Oh, the motion by Ms. Hamilton, second by Aikman.
Right, but you go down to the second line, and it says there were 7 people voting, but there are only 6 names here, so it's a little confusing.
Well, there was 6 voting and 1 abstention.
That's not what it says. Yeah, it says 7.
So I think what she's referring to, after her name, there's a number 7, that should be a 6.
Right.
And then the vote count is 1.
All right,
Correct.
So I understand.
good. Oh,
I should point out, the fact that I was involved with a meeting at home on TV again, as I said, my camera was not functioning, and so you didn't You didn't
Noted.
see me, but I saw you.
Thank you. Yes, Don?
I was going to say the same thing. Steve should be listed as remotely, not absent.
Yeah. All right. We actually, the only votes we took actually were the continuation, so. All right, we need a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
So move.
Moved by Mr.
Second,
Second by Don. Okay, quick roll call. Bob,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Ben, you aren't here.
No.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Don,
yes.
and I guess Sandy
Yes.
and Janet.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, minutes accepted as amended. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's try to make this as simple as possible, which is not going to be easy. We have 2 hearings and 2 applications being continued from our previous meeting on 305 Main Street and 170 Main Street, both contributing structures in the National Register District. Okay? What we have had as a result of, bear with me a second while I find my notes. Here we go. Paper, we're killing a lot of trees here. Okay, what's happening here is we have 2 applications in which we have significant comments from the Cape Cod Commission relative to the adequacy of the applications. And we appreciate both applicants had agreed to continue the meeting and make changes to the applicant. So let's focus first on 305 Main Street, okay? Unfortunately, we do have a revised application from 305 Main Street, and I would like to read for the record, okay, Ms. Korjev's comments.
Frank, before you get any further, I just will
Oh.
repeat that I'm recused on this matter, and I'm leaving.
Thank you very much. All right, the record show, Mr. Lear has recused himself, and I'm not sure where we are.
Janet will be voting.
Say again?
Janet will be voting.
Janet? Okay. Janet is up to be a voting member on 305 Main Street at this particular meeting. Okay, let me read this letter from Sarah Korjev. We had the revised plan from 305 Main Street, and we appreciate your folks taking another shot at it. I want to just to divest a minute. This committee has reviewed over 200 applications in the Old Village National Register District, and of those, only 3 were referred to the Cape Cod Commission. It is our stated purpose, from my perspective, and I think the commission members, to avoid it to the extent that we can do that and work with Mrs. Korjev, Sarah Korjev's office, to try to come to some conclusion. Now, let me read Sarah's comments. Frank, I'm not able to complete the review of the proposed plans for 305, but I wanted to make you and your board aware of some initial concerns I have. The latest plan of 305s differ slightly from the plans I reviewed previously in how they impact the historic Greek Revival building on the property. The proposed plans would lift the historic structure 4 feet higher than it is today and create a lower than it fully exposed on the west side of the building. These changes would alter the settling of the building and its relationship to the nearby historic structure in the National Register District. The changes would also alter the basic 1.5-story form of the historic structure, which is a key character-defining feature. I hope to look at these plans in more detail, as well as the plans for 170 Main Street next week. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. There are 2 other correspondence we've had from Sarah, giving some specifics in which Karen, did attempt to make some changes. I would propose, so your decision in some ways, that, that we allow Sarah to get back from her duty that she's on with the Corps of Engineers, and next week receive it, and then we can come to some conclusion, hopefully, at our next meeting. I don't know what your druthers are on that, Mr. Riley?
Well, I think we've presented new plans.
Could you just speak up a little bit? I'm having a little problem. I'll increase my hearing aid volume.
Hello.
Close enough.
Okay. We presented new plans. We'd like to review those plans with you today.
You'd like to review them today?
Yes.
Fine. Okay. All right, having said that, I will then continue. We have a number of correspondence for and against the application, and I guess we'll pull them off, including Sarah's comments. If that's what you'd like to do, we'll save them for the end.
Sure. I mean, Sarah hasn't commented on these plans, so I don't know when you say you're holding off what comments from Sarah.
I was going to review the previous comments from Sarah.
The ones you just read.
I read the one, we have two others from the previous original structure, in which he highlights the reasons and the changes for her concerns of the historic structure.
Oh, we're happy to read them now because the changes we've made address all those points very directly.
Okay. We can do that. The problem is, we've never really read it in the public. I want to put it in the public thing. All right, back on the 5-3, the 305 Main Street is a contributing structure to the National Register Historic District. Proposed plan would create an elevated historic structure 4 feet in exposed basement level. I agree, you did make that change. In relatively common, lift one building 1 or 2 feet and place a new foundation to address drainage issues. The change in height, 1 or 2 feet, can generally be accommodated without significant alter of the character of the building in relationship to its surrounding historic district. The proposed 4-foot increase in contrast would be quite visible, partly because it would increase and elevate the modest side building significantly, and partially because it combined with the proposed grading changes explores a new third level of the building. The proposed plan on the west side of the primary historic building mass extends down a full story. Original windows are relocated, chimney is added in the exterior wall, a large dormer. All of these changes make the combined building unrecognizable from the west and the rear. The primary goal in working buildings within the National Register is to preserve the original massing and character-defining features with as little change as possible. As noted in my comments earlier, in the proposed property, the modest scale of the original historic materials and the original massing should be preserved, including the existing front door surround. Okay, that's Sarah's comment from the Cape Cod Commission at the present time, and as I said, so the public understands, we're waiting for additional comments, which will come hopefully next week, but the applicant has decided he wants to proceed the revised application, so why don't you proceed?
Thank you. I thought you were going to read the earlier comments. I think the major changes that the applicant has made, and Karen Kempton is here, is our design professional. Her architectural work, I think, is very significant here. But hearkening back, as we so often do, to your earlier, even earlier proposals, the proposals from the owners of the property, the objection to that design, or at least one of the major objections to that design, was that the changes to the rear L did not separate the rear L enough from the main building, and there was concern about the height of the ridge of that rear L. As you can see, on the front elevation on the screen, the rear L is now, not only does it no longer compete with the side L that creates the second level in the main house, but it's significantly below that. And and if you look at the right elevation, you can see that there's another one of the concerns of the commission at that time was there was not enough separation between the main house and the rear L. And Karen has clearly made a significant separation there. So I'd ask Karen to go through the design process, and then we can talk about it after that. Karen?
Good morning, Karen Kempton, architect for Deb and Chris Howden. So we listened to the concerns of the board, and we made significant changes to the plans and elevations. We hope that the new proposal alleviates the concerns of the board that had about mass and scale. After playing the hearing over again, came up with the two concerns of the original proposal. Number one was lifting the house 4 feet to be level with the sidewalk and adjacent properties on the south side of Main Street. And number two was the mass and scale of the proposed rear L. So as we still believe it is important to lift the house for regrading, we are proposing elevating the house 2 feet rather than 4 feet. By lifting the house and providing a new full foundation, we will be able to repair any rot on the sills and floor joists and reinforce the structure as necessary. This 2 feet will allow us to regrade and prevent future water damage while allowing the structure to continue to sit below street level in the hollow. The rear elevation of the house will also be affected. Can we pull up the rear elevation? As the lower level floor, which is basically the basement floor, will now sit 3 feet below grade rather than a full story above. In response to the concerns of the mass and scale of the rear L, the Howdens have decided to eliminate the second floor on the rear L. On the front elevation, I'm sorry, can we go back to the front again? On the front elevation, the ridge height of the L is much reduced and is similar in scale to the existing L. There will still be a lower roof connector, as Bill mentioned, between the old and new, as seen on the right elevation. Also on the right elevation, you can see that the lower level floor elevation is, again, 3 feet below grade, which significantly lessens the massing of the structure. The left elevation facing School Street is back to a 1.5-story structure, and the drive-under garage has been removed. The length of the new proposed L is actually 8 feet less than the existing L, which also minimizes its scale. We feel that the existing rear L is not architecturally significant, as it is not original to the main Greek Revival structure and the front L, which we are preserving. The rear L, which is a separate dwelling unit, has been altered many times over the years, and we believe it is not a key character-defining feature of this historic structure. However, the proposed L will now be similar in scale to the existing L and of the existing structure. And yes, by the numbers, because of the removal of the L in both walls and floor area, this would be considered a substantial alteration, 44% of the total building. However, as I mentioned, the historic significant part of this building, which is the gable front Greek Revival and the front L, will be preserved. The alteration on this part of the building, which we believe is the character-defining feature of this site, will only be altered by 9.3%, much of which was previously approved. So we hope that you see that we have redesigned the scale, the mass, and height of this structure, all good requests and suggestions from the board, and have ended up with a proposal that is more sympathetic to the character of the old village. That's what I have.
Thank you, Karen.
1 second, Ben, let him finish.
No, Ben has a question, that's fine. That's fine. Steve has a question.
I have a quick comment, which is we asked you to diminish the scale of the property. You've done a magnificent job, in my estimation, of doing that, and I appreciate you listening to the commission. Secondly, I appreciated your notes, Karen. Have they been forwarded to Ms. Skorcheff at this point?
Well, the plans have been.
But I think your comments that,
Yeah, we'll do
for
that.
people like me, your comments speak better than, well, they help me read your plans. And I think that those comments ought to be made clear to Ms. Skorcheff so that she understands it as I do.
Yeah, we'll forward them to her today.
Thank you.
Okay.
So one other comment we'd like to make, and this kind of relates to Don's concerns, that the rear L, is an historic structure. We acknowledge that because it's attached to a building that's also an historic structure. And I know the policy is that any part of an historic structure, no matter when built, is historic in terms of the commission and its bylaws. And but one of the thoughts I've had, and I've discussed with a local builder, is that, the quality of construction between the main house and the rear L is significantly different. In fact, the rear L would be sort of poor quality construction, and as opposed to the very substantial construction of the main building. And so while under your definition, it's an historic structure,
Yes.
we feel that its removal does not significantly impact the historic nature of the main building.
Well, that's an opinion. It's
Oh,
not the
I've got a
opinion-
lot of opinions.
Yes, you do. But it's still over 50% demolition of a National Register contributing structure property. And I know you keep trying to make the argument.
No, it's 44, Frank. You're an
Okay.
engineer, for crying out loud. I'm the lawyer who struggles with math.
I doubt that sometimes, but that's okay, if you want to get into fun games. So it's a significant demolition of a contributing structure in a National Register district. And that's hard, and that's what Sarah's having some problems with it. I got some problems with that monstrous chimney that you put there, and you took out the old historic chimney, which, as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason you couldn't do that. You could have left it and as a faux chimney if you're not using it. Houses built in 18, whatever it is, had chimneys. You took away the chimney. You put that large chimney in the back, which is going to be quite overbearing, okay? I do have problems with the height and the dormers. I really wanted to, get Sarah's comments on this, and then we could probably move forward. So I've got some serious problems without Sarah's additional comments in terms of what you've done. Steve's comment there about, well, you did a good job. Yeah, we're making progress, and I appreciate the fact that you recognize you could not put a 2 or 3-story building next to that. You're going to change the streetscape significantly of that property, not just from Main Street, but from the side to School Street. So, I think we're making progress. I would like to make progress. When I look at the pictures you give me, what it looks like now, and it ain't going to look the same way. And, we don't just allow modernization of buildings in the old village for the sake of somebody wanting a modern building. It's not what we do. We're trying to preserve it. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Yes.
No, it's all right. I just wanted to ask, is there a reason why the chimney was made so tall?
By code, it has to be 2 feet higher than the closest point at 10 feet away. And generally, we like to go 3 feet if there's a lot of wind in the area so that there's no blowback down the chimney.
Yeah. It's massive. Yes, Don?
As was said, the entire building is a contributing structure in the National Register, and therefore should be considered as an entire building. And regardless of the modifications, this is a very, very substantial alteration. And my feeling is that in lieu of not having Sarah's comments, that we ought to refer it to the Cape Cod Commission so that they can consider it.
If I could just, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that one of the things that Sarah had said in her comments is that raising the building 1 or 2 feet to deal with the drainage would, in her opinion, not be objectionable, and so that's what we've done. And I understand that we always like to have the comfort of a professional patting us on the back, but the reality is that she really described what she wanted to happen in terms of lifting the building. And so other than her saying, well, okay, you only lifted it 2 feet, that's good. She didn't comment negatively about the chimney. If you want a faux chimney back in the original location, we're happy to
I'm sure, thank
put a
you.
faux chimney back there. You know, I mean, not that there's any precedent, of course, in your decisions, but on the corner of Hallett and School Street, we removed a very substantial addition
Yes, we did.
that had been built in the 20s and was completely out of character, had no architectural resonance with the main building, the original
Yeah, that was the
building.
key thing. It had no architectural resonance, and that's why I know I allowed it. This is a different story.
No, I understand it's different, but I'm saying, you know, and so this rear L is not the same quality of construction as the main building. And, you know, what we want to do here is we want to preserve these buildings. You know, we don't want to preserve every stick. I remember Don saying, we want the bones to be there. So 100 years from today, if they do work, they find the original bones. And so the main part of the dwelling, the original part of the dwelling, is going to be there. And really, the only change we're making is a little more headroom and some dormers. We know that dormers are an appropriate modification of an historic structure because they're the kind of changes that would have been made by the original owners if they wanted to bring more light into the second level. So so I think that considering what you had previously approved here, I think that you know, the changes from the previous approval are very modest. You know, we'll consult with the applicants about the size of the chimney on the side. We'll put a faux chimney back in, but, you know, supposing we come back 2 weeks from today, and Sarah's still working for the Corps of Engineers. Are we going to wait? What are we waiting for, really?
Well, you know, we've spent a lot of time on this application, the previous application, and there was finally, you know, people threw up their hands and said, okay. In this case, I think, you know, maybe we learned a little lesson here. We're not going to just throw up our hands. You guys are being extremely cooperative, and we appreciate that, okay? And I think, you know, we're getting very close. You're making a lot of significant changes, and we don't think everything that Sarah says. Sarah's trying to get us to come to some medium point, okay? But as long as we consider personally that what you're changing is a change to an historically significant structure. You keep trying to make the argument that the L is not historically significant, you know.
No, it's not architecturally significant, Frank.
This is not a
It's not
law.
architecturally significant.
This is not a legal thing where there's legal precedent. It's an opinion of the commission at the time whether or not we've removed the historical significance of the structure, that we've eliminated. So my only comment, you know, we could roll the dice and go ahead, but I think we're getting close. Do you understand?
Jane and Ben and Janet.
Okay, we're getting close. That's all my only point. Yes, I'm sorry. Steph, sorry, you're raising your hand?
said Janet has her hand.
Yes, okay, yeah.
I think that they've made significant changes to make this work, frankly, and they've listened to everything we've had to say. The object is to save the historic structure. That L in the back is basically unlivable, unattractive. We have no idea what year it was built. I mean, if the object is to save the historical structures and homes in Chatham, I don't think it's going to get any better than this, and I really don't see what we're doing. I don't get it.
Okay. Sandy, you had something to say?
No, actually, I thought that the revisions that you presented were quite well done, and the chimney's a little overwhelming, a little bit, but, no, I'm looking at it. Thank you.
Okay, everybody's had their comments?
Oh, what did Ben say?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ben. Ben?
Unmute yourself, Ben.
am muted.
I'm sorry, we're not getting you, Ben.
I said, I don't have a comment on this. Although I do, tend to agree with Janet.
Thank you. Jane?
My overall reaction to this was they reduced the scale, which really pleased me a lot, especially the dormers. The dormers on the first drawing that I saw were much too large in scale for the rest, for the structure below it. So I was really pleased to see smaller dormers. And I tend to agree with Janet too.
Okay,
But you, and I understand that a significant alteration really needs to go to the Cape Cod Commission. I get it.
okay. I think that's it. Thank you, Jane. All right, I'm going to read the correspondence.
I just have one question.
Yes, sure, please.
Is there any way to give more light to that floor in other ways than the dormers, like skylights or something?
Skylights,
Well,
What
we
are you
would never put
talking
a
about?
skylight on a historic building.
they don't go
Well-
in, not historic.
Those dormers don't either.
What are you talking about?
Where the dormers are. I'm trying to think if there's
In the
any
front?
other way to make it so that they get the light they need. You said that they were added. 'cause
Are you
they need
saying
light?
skylights
Headroom.
rather than dormers?
And headroom.
And headroom. Okay, that wasn't put in there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we have correspondence with... Not yet, please. I'll get to you, please. All right, we have some correspondence, which I think it's appropriate to read. Everybody's kind of given an indication where they are. So I want to read the correspondence, which we haven't done, okay?
Frank, before you do, would you kind of tell us the sequence of the correspondence and the latest plans?
Yes,
If they're related
I
to the
will.
previous plan.
Right.
Or it's differently.
exactly,
Second plan, thank you.
yes. Yeah, I intend to do that. Thank you very much for reminding me. Okay. The first item,
Frank actually likes it, but
there's a couple of for and against, so read the fors first. This is correspondence received on 10/3 from a Marjorie French against the current changes. You guys got to put a date on your drawings, you know? What's the date on that drawing?
It's on the bottom right-hand side.
What is it?
I can't read it from here.
9/20 something?
9/20, yeah.
And that's it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Dear Mr. Messina, Chairman, dear Mr. Messina and Commissioners, we are Old Village residents writing in support of the amended renovation plans for 305 Main Street by Deb and Chris Houdin. We are familiar with Chatham's renovations oversight process, having done significant work on our home at 90 Silverleaf in 2011. We worked with the Historical Commission and along with our architect, attorney, and contractor and finished the home and received the Preservation Award in 2012. Remember it very well. The Houdins are participating in the same process. We both purchased an antique home with the goal of restoring it and keeping it with Chatham's history. When their original plan was questioned, their architect modified the structure. They made a good faith effort to work with the town neighbors to strike the difficult balance between respect for history and having a modernized, functional home. Chatham has lost many historical homes over the years, and we fully appreciate the stewardship's role and the Historical Commission plays. At the same time, as a town, we need new homeowners who are willing to make not just a financial commitment of purchasing property, but also the investment of the special time, care, and attention that an antique home needs. We believe the Houdins, am I mispronouncing that? Houdins? Houdins revise the renovation plans and strike a balance between the Historical Commission's mission, the family's desire for a renovated home, and the needs of the town we all love. We respectfully ask the Historical Commission to approve the revised plans for renovation for the home. Thank you for your support. Marjorie and David French, 90 Silverleaf. Okay? And yes, I think we do recognize the significant investment in buying an old home. The second was is dated 10/3, came in last night. It's from my email. To the Historical Commission members, we are writing as residents of the Historic District in Chatham. We've received the most recent proposed drawings for the property on 305 Main Street. We are in favor of the renovations and find them keeping with the neighborhood scale of the surrounding homes. We walk the corner of School Street regularly and believe the renovations will be welcome change to the property, which existed in a state of disrepair for so long. We encourage you to improve the design so the structure can be renovated, and we will certainly enhance Main Street and the Historic District. Regards, John and Diane Chapman, 81 Holloway Street. These were against the original plans, but I'll read them quickly, so you know, in the record, Steve, what you were asking for. This is from the Old Village Association. Object to the plans for 305 Main Street, the increased height of 4 feet, which we've taken care of, and the substantial change to the east side of the house constitute a substantial alteration not keeping with the neighborhood. We look forward to hearing Sarah Cordia's comments and provide our input at the appropriate time, including myself. This is from POP, Protect Our Past, Ellen Briggs, dated September 5th. Again, this is to the old plans. Unfortunately, she was, I'm going to paraphrase, this is a little long. She was unable to join the meeting. She's presenting this letter on the current proposal on the iconic house in the Old Village. 305 Main Street, the house sitting on the Main Street has been the signature house of the Old Village and must continue the defining characteristic fabric of Chatham. Hundreds and more than likely thousands of people will pass there yearly. It is best known as for decades as the Breathwood. Defining historic nature is the one basic 1.5-story form. Why this loss? Why raise it up 4 feet in historical? And why not 1 or 2 feet? I think we've solved that. When someone buys a property in the Old Village, they have an obligation to respect the nature of the Chatham. Whoever is hired to restore the building has an obligation to respect the history and the nature of Chatham. I do believe reasonable solution can be reached by returning to the drawing board, taking in historic considerations, and I think that's what we're trying to do. Against, to the Historical Commission, this is again the original application, dated September 5th. This is from David McAdam, 52 School Street. This is in reference to the proposed plans for 305 Main Street. I have several objections to the proposed plans, and while I appreciate the need to raise the original house and solve drainage problems, the 4 feet seems quite excessive, so I think we put that aside. The School Street streetscape is important and as significant as Main Street. The proposed plans for 3-story massing, I guess, has now been replaced, and the east-facing garage will further detract from the School Street streetscape. The rear of the structure plainly visible all will come down School Street as well as other points of the village, and the proposed masses of the 3-story wall with 25 windows and doors, and I think we've taken care of a lot of that. In short, the massive 3-story structure is not in character of the Old Village and overwhelms the historic architecture and seriously detract from the Historical Registry District. So I think we commented some of that. This is again against from Nancy and William Kerner to the Historical Commission. The proposed changes to the lovely home in 305 would completely change the streetscape. Presently, the low, compact, simple lines define the building. I would urge you to deny this application as presented. And this is a property owner of 99 School Street, Nancy Kerner. That's it. Okay, now we will ask the members of the public, and I noticed there's one member, I believe there's somebody online. Dallas, can you tell me that? Is there a member of the public online that wishes to speak for or against the application? Seeing none, I know, yes, please, Mr. Bacon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry to delay it, I just wanted to get through that other stuff right away, Things are dragging.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Historical Commission, good afternoon, or good morning, as the case may be. I have a statement that I'd like to read into the record in opposition to this application. It is detailed, but I believe it covers points that many of you have not considered or heard. For the record, my name is Norman Bacon. My wife Carol and myself are long-term residents of the Old Village since 1987 at our home at 14 Sunset Lane. I'm making this statement in opposition to the application with respect to 305 Main Street, which is a contributing structure located within our Old Village National Register District. In 1996, we and many others in the Old Village section of Chatham became aware of the continuing loss of many of our historical residences and other structures, and we went forward to form the Old Village Association. The purpose was to organize the neighborhood and document its history. My wife was the first president of the Old Village Association, and along with the late Nancy Yaw, who was then chair of this commission, the Historical Commission, and along with others, including the late Eleanor Gelsey, we undertook to form the Old Village National Register Historic District. We worked for 3 years until it was officially recognized and approved by the Massachusetts Historical Commission and the National Park Service in 2001. Today, I come before you to speak for 305 Main Street. It was the former Sparrow Snow House. It's been known for many years as Breathwood. It is a designated contributing structure in the Old Village National Register Historic District. It was built to sit in a hollow slightly below street level, and this is where it still sits. Its original mass is essentially unchanged. As such, any proposal to alter or expand this contributing structure that exceeds 25% of its existing gross floor area can be determined to constitute a substantial alteration. That is a defined term under the Cape Cod Commission Act, the Massachusetts law which applies here today and which is binding, and which now requires this proposal, in my judgment, to be referred directly to the Cape Cod Commission as a development of regional impact for a full public hearing by that commission. On this past Wednesday, September 28th, following 2 continuances generously granted by this commission to the applicant's architect submitted detailed calculations, and these are in my statement, which appear to show that they are proposing to increase the gross floor area by approximately 44.3% of this designated contributing structure, which is an amount well over the statutory permissible 25% threshold under the Cape Cod Commission Act. By the applicant's own figures, and I believe I heard Ms. Kempton state, or Mr. Riley state, that the number is 44%. The proposed alteration, therefore, should be referred to the Cape Cod Commission for their full review. Now, if we go directly to the official Cape Cod Commission guidelines for referring historic properties for review, it is approximately a 10-page document which is intended to direct and encourage historical commissions to know the law and to apply it. The purpose of this preliminary review before you now is being made to determine whether the proposed work constitutes a substantial alteration, one that would alter the key character-defining features of this building, and it would threaten the building's continued eligibility for listing in the National Register. Here, the applicant, after 2 continuances, is now finally telling us that they are proposing to change almost 50%, just approximately half, of the gross floor area of this historic structure, which is going to require and include raising the height of the main building by 2 feet, as directly seen from Main Street. Please note that their proposal would also include the total demolition of the rear L, which is a designated part of the contributing structure. This is set forth on the official Form B, which is attached to my statement, and included within the National Register District data sheets, the official document. And as an aside, I, along with Candace Jenkins, the consultant to the Historical Commission then, signed that Form B. I'm well familiar with it, and I state here that the rear L is a part of the contributing structure itself. The guidelines that I referred to make it clear that partial demolition, new additions, and other exterior alterations may qualify as substantial alterations, requiring mandatory Cape Cod Commission review as a development of regional impact, if they include removing historically or character-defining features of this structure. It notes specifically that the Historical Commission needs to refer to the inventory form for help in this review. And it then states in no uncertain terms, and I'm quoting now from the guidelines of the Cape Cod Commission, quote, "The following alterations should," and they use the word should, and they put it in bold and caps, whereas the rest of the statement is in normal type. "The following alterations should be considered a substantial alteration." And it lists then 6 types of changes. And these include relocation of an historic building if the building has not been previously moved, and it will change important relationships to other historic properties or the surrounding district. It says further, established street setback patterns should be preserved. It goes on, any demolition or demolition and reconstruction of the original or primary historic building mass should, again, in bold caps, be referred to the Cape Cod Commission. Here, the combination of raising the original contributing structure by 2 feet, this is the latest application, and totally demolishing the historic L itself, a part of the contributing structure, clearly constitutes a substantial alteration. And I believe it requires you to forward this, refer it to the Cape Cod Commission for a full public review as a development of regional impact. And my closing comment, Mr. Chairman, The Old Village National Register District is comprised of approximately 200-plus contributing structures, each one of which plays an integral part of the whole. The proposed changes would effectively eliminate 305 Main Street from its important role, and it could well serve as a precedent for others who would want to seek to raise RAISE, lift their own residents in the district. In addition, the demolition of this historic L, which forms a part of the similar contributing structure, and in doing so, it increases the gross floor area by an amount well over the 25% threshold. And accordingly, I submit to you, this matter requires full public review by the Cape Cod Commission, and I do thank you for hearing me.
Thank you very much, Norm. I appreciate your comments, and quite candidly, I agree with most of them. You know, anybody else want to speak for or against the applications? Okay. You know, I'm a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry. Could you come on up, sir? It's nice having 7, 8 eyes here, so know what's going on. Thank you. Just introduce yourself.
I'm Walter Dre. I live at 314 Main Street, which is directly across from the structure in question, 305.
What was that address, 314 Main?
314, yeah. The one with the porch. And I and my wife constantly sit on the front porch and observe the destruction over time of that house because of water infiltration, I would assume, as I see it from my house. Excuse me. So I'm here to support the plan. I think the plan is, it seems adequate, it seems substantial. It also, I think the concession recently was 2 feet, adding 2 feet to the structure. I would prefer to see that. As someone who's experienced water, mitigating water infiltration into foundations in 2 homes, I see that 4-foot elevation, or at least at street level, would allow them to be able to grade up to the foundation and shed off to the sides, and that's the proper way in which to do that. So I'm in support of the elevation. Now, if that ship has sailed and you're not going to revisit that, that's fine, but I think the rest of the plans are something that I have no problem with.
Thank you.
Excuse me, what came up once, a question I do have, the chimney that exists now is how many feet over the ridge line?
That I don't know.
So it's not much?
The chimney,
sorry.
the current chimney is over the ridge line, yes.
Right, and so the new proposed chimney is within the same elevation?
Yeah, I don't think the objection is to the height of the chimney.
It's the mass on the outside?
It's the mass of something that was never there.
So-
And now all of a
That's
sudden,
right.
we're
So I
adding a
think it's the same
massive
height.
chimney on an historic element of the house, which
Right, right. So.
it
will the-
changes the design.
And just curious, just will the chimney be the primary source of heating in the house, as it was years ago in the historic house?
No, sure, it's a
So
wood,
it's
it's
aesthetic,
probably a
so
wood
it's-
burn, it's probably a wood burning stove.
Right, and it probably consumes a lot of livable area inside. I haven't been in there, but.
The existing
Yeah,
chimney does.
right.
To me, it's an
So-
architectural affectation.
I'm looking at it more practically. I think the rest of the plans seem to conform with what to the constraints and the objections you
You
had
see,
in the
the
past.
difference is that, a chimney like that never existed in an historic building that size. I mean, it's a modern feature, that kind of wood-burning fire exterior, and that's my personal objection to it.
Right.
We're not, the idea is that, are we designing a modern house? No, we don't want to. At least that's what we're trying not to do. So anyway.
Well, I think you have to, evolve, and you have to evolve and.
You have to what?
Within constraints, evolve.
Evolve.
And within constraints, you maintain the historical integrity of the house,
Yeah.
but you have to make it livable to the 21st century.
That's true.
I mean, so if if the
I got you,
chimney
Steph.
has no function, the existing chimney has no function, then why not put a chimney there to replicate its historical nature
chimney-
and make it more functional?
The reason we do it usually is that when a house was built in 18-something, that's where the chimney was, and that's where it should be. If it's no longer functional, we allow a faux chimney to put up to create and to reestablish the streetscape of
So-
an historic structure of 18-something.
Oh, so the faux chimney is only from the roof line up? Is that
Yeah,
what?
mhm,
Okay.
that's all.
All right.
It's,
Okay.
it's a very
So-
common, in fact, I think in 80% of the old historic houses we've had, most of the designers have agreed to put it in there. Because most homes are not heated with chimneys anymore, they use direct
Right.
vent.
Okay, no, I had a couple of questions about the plans as proposed. And
sorry.
I'm not familiar with
okay.
Cape Cod Commission, all the regulations, but
I'm sorry?
I'm not familiar with the Cape Cod regulations, Cape Cod Commission regulations, but I don't know, my vote would be to go forward with, actually, I'd prefer to raise the structure, but
Right.
lift it, but, I still have no problem with the plans as is.
Okay,
So-
thank you very much. Yes, Steph?
I think that Karen said that the chimney would be changed, so
Yes.
I don't think we have to
Right.
debate that.
Let me just answer your question, because from the previous speaker. This is a National Register Historic District, and being on the National Register of Historic Places in probably 99.9% of the United States doesn't really mean anything in terms of protection. Cape Cod made a decision and created a Cape Cod Commission. When they created that Cape Cod Commission, they provided an additional protection for National Register properties. Now, most properties are better protected by an historic district. If this was an historic district, we wouldn't need the Cape Cod Commission. The historic districts could say no. But that's what happened when the Cape Cod Commission was formed. They established guidelines. They said an owner could make changes up to 10% of the gross floor area, no problem. Once you exceeded 25%, and in this case it's approaching 44%, you mandatorily should refer it to the Cape Cod Commission. I made that little speech earlier. I was speaking to the applicant, so.
Frank, that's not accurate.
I'm sorry?
You said it has to be submitted.
Mandatory referral to the Cape,
Yeah,
let me
it's not
finish
a-
my point.
It's not a mandatory referral.
Let me finish. This is not an argument. I'm talking to the gentleman, please. Thank you. It's a mandatory referral to the Cape Cod Commission unless the Historical Commission determines that the changes are being made do not affect the historical significance. In other words, even though it's more than 25%, we as a commission have the authority to say it really does not affect the historical significance and is not a substantial alteration, and therefore we can allow it to go forward. The Cape Cod Commission really prefers us to resolve these things locally and not at that level. Yes?
If they'd like us to do that, I would suggest that the neighbors are sick of looking at this house sinking into the ground and the vermin living in the L that is not only unattractive but unlivable. I really don't see why we can't approve this. It is going to look so much better.
Hold on one second. Let Mr. Riley had a thing, and then we're going to end it and have
I
a
was just going to say,
discussion.
can we call the question?
Yeah, hold on one second. Yes. You were going to say something, Bill.
I'm not going to say anything now because people I love want to vote.
If you're not going to say anything, why did you? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. I think we've got enough comments. And
Excuse me,
We
Frank?
can have,
We have a hand up in the.
yes. Could you
Good
identify
morning.
yourself?
Fred Miller. Yes, can you hear me, Frank?
Yes.
Fred Miller, 285 Main Street. I'm opposite on School Street. I appreciate very much what they have done to change the scale and reduce the mass. I think some of the comments from the commission about modifications such as chimneys make sense. I very much appreciate it's not going up 4 feet, but just 2 feet. I understand the need for that. I agree that the house needs to be restored so it doesn't continue to deteriorate. I'm hoping you'll find some reasonable agreement on the nuances you're suggesting, or a number of you have suggested, so that the house is preserved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we did get his name? I couldn't get it.
Fred Miller, he lives right across the street.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Miller. All right. Okay, we're going to now have our own personal deliberations, close it off, and then we'll vote.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. Is a motion appropriate? Do people have any more discussion that you'd like? Okay, go.
I'd like to move that the application for 305 Main Street be referred to the Cape Cod Commission for their consideration.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Jane.
Second, Jane?
No, she abstained.
Yes.
Second the motion. Okay. All right. Now, last and final discussions. Let's go around the room. I guess, Steve, you've kind of made your thoughts known?
Well, I think that we ought to comment only or solely on Don's motion to refer the matter, to refer the application to the Cape Cod Commission.
Yes.
I think the committee made it clear previously that we were concerned about the scale and mass of the building, and the amount of the height that was being raised. I think the applicant has addressed all of the Cape Cod Commission representative Sarah Korchef's objections or comments, and I don't see anything much more that needs to be done. We told them what we didn't like, we told them what to do, they listened to us, they did it, they've brought it back to us. Sending it to the Cape Cod Commission will be nothing more than a rehash, a substantial delay for these poor people who have obviously invested a lot of money, not only to acquire the property, but hiring architects, attorneys, planners, designers, or whatever. I think we have to give them some consideration. The most immediate neighbors that have spoken in favor of the application as it stands. That says a lot for what the neighborhood thinks of what's going on. And I don't see that, as much as I respect Don's comments, because Don, I wouldn't call him I'll call him my mentor in terms of how the commission ought to consider properties. And I think he does an excellent job. I don't agree with him in this case, and I will vote against his motion.
Okay, good. Steph?
I have to agree with most of what was said, and I too figure him, but I don't agree this time. I think one of the things we need to do is work together. I think you've done so much that we've asked, so I would vote against it.
Okay, I go around the table. You know, I just want to correct something, Steve. We haven't gotten the Cape Cod Commission's comments. The comments we have were Sarah Korchef's comments on the first application. We expected to receive the comments on the revisions like today or yesterday, and unfortunately Sarah has not. I don't want to refer this to the Cape Cod Commission. I just wish the applicant would be a little bit more cooperative, but Mr. Riley and the applicant is trying to force the issue, okay? You know, throw me into the pit. If we had Sarah's comments, and the Sarah's comments may be simple, okay, then I would say, yeah, I do not want to refer this to the Cape Cod Commission. But in light of the fact that the applicant's reluctance to allow us to get a full review by the Cape Cod Commission, their staff member, Sarah Korchef, I have to support Don's motion. I mean, they're trying to force the issue. So, you know, we're not talking about not doing this. We don't want it. Yes, they've made a lot of changes, and they're in the right direction, but we're not there yet, okay? And the fact that a neighbor across the street may like it is fine. That's not our job. This is not the zoning board of adjustment where we're concerned about how the community feels. We have an obligation to the Cape Cod Commission, to the National Register of Historic Places, to ensure that a property is not a substantial alteration to a contributing structure in the National Register District. That's our obligation. That's what we should be considering. And if the applicant doesn't want to withdraw it and force the vote, then we force the vote. But that's how I feel. I don't know if I agree with Don all the time, mostly we don't, but we don't. Anyway, that's what I feel, and I guess the only other voting member is
Jane and Ben and
Janet and then Ben.
I think that I understand. I think I understand what the Cape Cod Commission wants us to do, and I think they want us to save as many historical structures as possible in the town, and this is why people come to visit Chatham. And I know they want to walk past and have it look just like it looked, like 50 years ago. Well, meanwhile, back at the ranch, it's sinking into the ground. There's animals living in these other structures. They're proposing to save the antique. People are tired of looking at this fall into disrepair. They're spending a lot of money to save it. I really wonder what else people can do. I think this is what the Historical Commission wants to do, and I think it's what the Cape Cod Commission wants us to do. We're saving the main part of the house. The only reason they're putting, I don't know, I haven't discussed it with them, the L on, is going to be someplace to live. The antique part is going to look real cute on the streetscape, but trust me, nobody's going to be living in it. They're going to walk through it to get to where they can live. I would not refer, I would vote against this referral.
Okay. Ben?
Yeah, I'm against the referral. I think we ought to just vote on it
Okay,
and let him proceed.
all right.
Frank,
Yes, Jane?
Jane, while I agree with both sides, the rule is the rule, and I agree with what you said and what Don said. If this isn't a substantial alteration, I don't know what is.
Right, thank you. Okay, I guess lastly, everybody said what it is. The commission doesn't want to wait for Sarah's comments, which we probably get next week, so we'll proceed. Okay, roll call. Steve Burlingame.
No.
Ben?
No,
Steph?
No.
Jane?
Yes?
Don?
Yes?
Janet?
What are we voting on?
If you vote to send it to the Cape Cod Commission, you would vote yes. If you
No.
want not, then no. Okay. And the chair votes yes. So the motion fails. Now we need a motion. Christine, did we ever reaffirm the historical significance?
If you want to do that.
Yeah.
If you want to do that now, we can do that.
Okay. So we need a motion, Don, relative to reaffirming historical condition, significance? Because we have to do chapter 158 too. We're not done, you guys.
I move that the home at 305 Main Street is considered historic,
Historically significant?
historically significant.
Thank you. All right, second?
Second, Jane.
Thank you, Jane. Any other comments? This is a pro forma motion reaffirming the historical significance, but we have to do it. Okay, Steve?
Yes.
Ben?
yes,
Steph?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes?
Don?
Yes,
Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, part two. We
Mr.
now have an
Chairman.
application before us, here under chapter 158, whether or not we were to impose a demolition delay under chapter 158. I would propose, although you did make a determination not to refer to the Cape Cod Commission, we have now an opportunity to get Sarah Korjev's comments. Okay, at the present time, this applicant is going to proceed with what is presented. I don't have any final drawings. I think if we impose a minor demolition delay of like 30 days or something like that, we will get Sarah's comments and then we will revise this at the next meeting, whether or not if Sarah has no significant comments, then, sorry. That's my phone. I thought I had it off. If Sarah has no significant comments, then we just let it go and it's over. Any comments?
Yes, we voted.
I think
No, we voted to refer it to the Cape Cod Commission.
that's, we have not voted on the other matters yet. I think that we have essentially gotten Sarah Korchef's comments. She made the comments she found to be difficult and objectionable. The applicants have reacted to those comments, have corrected those things so that they are now in line with the comments made by Sarah.
That's not true. She hasn't looked at the new plans yet.
Well, my attitude is that she has, the comments that she made have been addressed by the applicant.
On the previous plan.
No.
Yes.
Well, on the previous plan, so they modified it so that.
Whether or not they incorporated her comments or not is a subject of discussion, which we haven't discussed.
I move that we approve the application as presented.
Okay. Steph?
I'll second.
Don?
Are you looking for comments or a vote on
I'm
the?
looking for comments so we can know whether we're going to vote.
My feeling is that we should have a 30 or 60-day demo delay until we get Sarah's final comments on the final plans.
Janet?
I don't think we need Sarah's additional comments. She gave us some comments, and they altered the plans in respecting her suggestions.
But Janet, that was against the original plan. She hasn't seen the revised plans.
But this is what she told them to do.
But that's not completely true, in my opinion. There's a lot of things that they haven't done. So I think it's a bad precedent on this commission.
I think we're
That's
going to
okay.
get nobody living in
You guys-
Chatham if this keeps up.
Guys, you know, it's your call. I'm just one person here.
Frank, how about the letter from Sarah marked September 23rd, which talks about things that we don't have any jurisdiction over, like topography, retaining walls, and such as that? She said those were things we should ask about, but I believe she said the other charges were good.
No, I don't agree with you. If we go back to the September, I got to find the letter referring to. Unfortunately, I have not been able to review the plans for 305 Main Street and compare the comments. I'm working, blah, blah, blah. I did look at the revised plans briefly and see they have altered plans to elevate the building to 2 feet. The proposed topical change and returning wall that go along with this proposal are unclear, so you may want to request additional information to clarify. I remain concerned about the potential impacts to the basic form, architectural detail, and scale of the modest historic structure. She hasn't done that yet.
But do we need her to tell us what looks good? Do we need her to tell us what was working here in Chatham? I don't think so. That's what our job is.
No, I don't agree with you, but that's okay. Guess you need a new chairman. Okay,
I believe Sarah is the expert that we have referred to and asked for her opinions in many, many cases in the past. And I think without her opinion, we're just flying by the seat of our pants. We're not experts. We have experience in historic preservation to some degree, but certainly not her professional expertise.
okay, I think we talked this out. An applicant, you want to add anything to Mr. Riley? No, I don't think so. Good. Jane talked. All right. Ben, do you have anything else to add, or else we're going to take a vote?
No, I don't, no.
Thank you. All right, what was the motion, Don? Did you make a motion? I forget.
So the motion was to approve the application.
No, the motion would be not to, that motion would be that the proposed application does not, we'll get it, hold it.
So you made a
Does
motion
not
to,
affect the historical significance of the property, and therefore, no demolition delay is.
Right.
Do you have a copy of it?
So moved.
You got it? I love the attorneys. God save me from attorneys. The blue one. Do you have it, Ben, Steve?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
I say that I did. The one I have doesn't sound correct at this point.
I move the Chatham Historical Commission finds the material presented dates showing the proposed alteration do not constitute a substantial alteration in located, oh, that's the wrong one, sorry.
Bob, where are you? Can he come in?
Oh, it's on the back side.
It's the second part of that.
Yeah, okay. It's on the back side then. I'll read it for you. The Chatham Historical Commission finds proposed work to be done dated
September 27th.
September 27 will not materially diminish the historical significance of the building structure, and therefore the commission does not impose a demolition delay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments, questions? Any member of the public wish to speak for or against it? Nope. Okay, roll call. Steve?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Steph?
Aye.
Jane?
No.
Don?
No.
Janet?
Aye.
And the chair votes no. So, good luck. What a mess.
Just so you know, we
Thank
will
you
put-
very much.
we
We'll
will
move
put a-
on to the next
we
application.
will put a faux chimney on it.
Pardon?
We will put a faux chimney on the building.
Well, thank you for small favors. I think that's a real shot in the head to Sarah Korjeff, and you tell her.
I don't care.
Yeah,
It's
I'm really disappointed, but that's life. Pardon? Yeah, I know, I just don't understand why
The neighbors all thought.
nobody doesn't want to wait 3 days for Sarah's comments. It just absolutely blows my mind.
Hey, Frank,
Totally disrespectful.
hey, Frank. I have my
Ben.
hand up here. The only reason I voted the way I
I can't hear you,
did, I
Ben.
don't see any, I said, voted
Can
the
you
way
hear
I
him?
did, because I can see no reasonable alternative. So that's my reason, and I am sorry if Sarah Korjeff's feelings are going to be hurt, but what else can you do?
Well, we could have done a very simple
That's right.
thing. We could have allowed the application to continue for 2 weeks, and then we would have had Sarah's complete comments, and then we could make the changes that she proposed, if in fact we thought they were reasonable. But making a decision based upon half, I was going to use a nasty word, half of the information, to me, was not a good precedent for this commission. Maybe we need a new chair. Okay, moving right along. Application 22012, excuse me, 22012, to be heard in accordance with Chapter 158, demolition delay, and also to be heard within the Cape Cod Commission Regional Policy Act for properties situated in the National Register District pursuant for an application for a substantial authorization to a historic or contributing structure in the National Register District. I read those words, I guess they don't mean anything anymore. Okay, we have an application on 170 Main Street. We have a similar situation where Ms. Korjeff was not able to provide us revised comments to the application which we received a week ago. And I once again would ask the applicant to continue the application to the next meeting, which is 2 weeks, and we would get Sarah's final comments.
The applicant would prefer to get the comments of the commission to the proposed change, and then, once we've received those comments, the benefit of those comments, then address that issue again.
All right, we seem to have lost our members of the commission.
Did we lose Jane?
Yes.
Oh, they're there.
Just hold on one second. Are we okay, Dallas?
Want to take a break?
No, just, he's coming out. Are we okay?
I think the building took a brown out, so we just flickered and.
Took a brown out.
You sucked all the electricity out of it.
Okay, thank you.
Just a
Okay,
quick
the
comment to be
applicant,
clear.
170 Main Street, had submitted an application in which we received the revised plans, which is it's just this 2-sheet of paper? Is that, Rick? That's it?
Correct.
Frank, I have just a question procedurally. Are you suggesting that we hear your proposals, comment on it, but find it appropriate to wait 2 weeks to hear Sarah's comments before we actually vote on it?
Can I make a comment?
The answer to that is, naturally, we prefer a vote today, but we want to listen to the comments of the commission before we decide whether to request an additional continuance.
Understood.
Okay, why don't you present what you're presenting?
Okay, I want to present Mr. Rick Roy, who I can't stop from presenting.
Right. So
That's a good
basically,
i-
the idea is from a I'm Rick Roy Construction. So I just sat through the previous hearing, okay, and been a longtime member in the town of Chatham and been a builder for a long time and everything else. And I feel bad, okay, that it seems to be a little bit confusing to me about the procedure. So the last meeting that I was at, we were asked to continue so that we could get an opinion from Sarah, which we got, okay? And then subsequently, because I'm assuming that this is a compromise, that, you get information from Sarah from the Cape Cod Commission. It's not the do-all or end-all, but she's rendering an opinion as to what she feels. And ironically, some of the information that she gave was actually the same suggestion that the chairman of the commission gave to me when I started this whole process of going before the commission to try to get this approved. So we got the letter, and in that letter, they addressed the same things that we're talking about in the previous meeting where, we wanted to try to maintain the definition of the contributing historical structure. And so what we did was we indented the gable ends of the building by taking the modest, at the time of the original application, was a 480 square foot addition of habitable space. It's 3 floors, 4 feet deep by the length of the building, which adds up to 480 square feet, which is nowhere near 25% of the contributing structure. The intent was always to try to maintain the original shape of the building, and so the suggestion that was made by the chairman, and also again by Sarah Korjeff, was to try to indent the building so that when you were driving down the street, you would see the corner boards and you would see the gable end of the building. So based upon what I thought the procedure was going to be, was simply that we would get Sarah Korjeff's remarks, okay? I would make the changes to the plan. I would come before the commission and address those remarks and show that we had indeed taken the plan and you have the copies of it, and we've indented the structure so that when you look at it from the gable end, there's a corner board that goes down the side of the building. And so I think what Bill Riley is basically saying is that if we're going to go through this from a procedural standpoint, then to stop having the meeting, because we've now revised the plans, which we were asked to do by Sarah, brought them before the meeting, and now I have to wait again for Sarah to look at them again, all right? I guess I get a little bit confused that if she makes the suggestions as to what it is that she thinks should be done to the building, and then you do them, why she would have to look at them again. But I'm not going to not play fair ball here, okay? I I have to come before these commissions all the time, and I understand the task that you've been given, but certainly this one is nowhere near as complicated as the previous application, because we're basically keeping the general mass of the building about the same. I don't think that we're substantially changing this building by adding 480 square feet of habitable space to it, okay, when it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,700 square feet as it exists. So rather than being, out of line or causing trouble with anybody, I'm just really looking at the commission to be able to say, am I missing something here as far as the procedure is concerned?
Well, let me correct you. Let me
Well,
clarify for you, Rick.
We don't.
Let me
we don't
clarify.
even-
for-
no,
let
we
me
don't
just
even wanna
respond-
talk about-
Let me
we don't-
respond, excuse me, Mr. Riley. Let me respond to Mr.
Yeah,
Riley.
we don't want to talk about procedure, we want to talk about the proposed change to the
Mr.
building.
Riley, could you just let me finish talking? Thank you very much.
Keep it short.
Thank you. Rick, it's very, very simple, and I agree it is confusing. And from that perspective, and the back and forth, the back and forth is because, as I made that little lecture in the beginning, we do not want to send these to the Cape Cod Commission. And the history we have had in the past, only to have 3 out of 200, is because we spent some time going back and forth with the applicants. Unfortunately, in the previous applications, 305, my commission decided they didn't want to follow that precedent, if you will. And we have gone back and forth with Sarah. So, yeah, and I know it's a little bit frustrating, but the objective is, a good objective, is to not refer it to the Cape Cod Commission, okay? And when Sarah makes comments, she kind of gives us the heads up, hey, if you don't do that and it comes to the Cape Cod Commission, they're probably going to kill it, okay? So we try to work it out locally, and I'm sorry it's frustrating.
Yes, but I'm not saying I'm frustrated, Frank.
Well, maybe
okay?
wrong word. I'm sorry there's a bit of
But I think
misunderstanding.
that as an applicant before the board, I think I have a right to speak,
Of course.
okay? And what I hear, okay, is that, somehow I hear that we're not doing it correctly, and I don't
That's not
necessarily
true.
agree with that. I feel that you sent it, we continued, we waited to get Sarah's comments, we got Sarah's comments, and then I adjusted the plan based upon those comments.
But not all, Rick. You didn't do everything that Sarah said, and that's the problem. Okay? And that's why I wanted to allow the commission to go back more. If you would have done everything 100% that Sarah said, or her comments, then it would be a slam dunk. Unfortunately, Rick, it's not complete 100%. And that was where I'm coming from, and even with the previous commission, to let's see what Sarah's additional comments are. But, your attorney's decision here, he wants to proceed, then fine, we proceed. Yes, Mr. Riley, you have something to add?
I do, in fact. I think the important thing here is to look at the proposed changes to the building. Rick keeps talking about 480 square feet, but what we're doing is we're adding 4 feet to the back of the building. So the 3 sides, which are more visible to the public, are remaining essentially unchanged. We're changing a couple of windows, changing a couple of doors, but those are changes that, once they're made, will never be thought of again, because they meld so nicely into the existing structure. And so I'd love to get the commissioner's comments, and so we can see if our thought process in terms of the proposed changes are accurate.
Thank you. Member of the board have any commission or comments? Don?
Yeah, I have a question. On the application, it says that total square footage of proposed demolition is 2,111.7 square feet. I don't understand that.
Well, you shouldn't understand it. I had a conversation with Paul, Jeff rather, excuse me, and he went over the application, and the numbers that are on the application are not correct. The building is 2,700 square feet, and I think 2,760 square feet in total. We're removing 150 square feet, if you're looking at floor area, because on the back of the building, there is a sun porch that obviously was not original to the building, but it's 150 square feet. And that's the extent of what's being removed as far as square footage is concerned.
Well,
Okay.
wait, just to see,
Floor area square footage.
floor area, good.
But the whole.
What I was trying to do was point out the fact that the entire rear wall, existing rear wall is being removed. That's where that number came from.
And
But there is
that's more than 480 square feet.
Oh, clearly.
Yes, but
That's
it's
why-
also on the application because the application is a little bit confusing because it asks for square footage and relates to the area of the floor area. So that's one question on the application. And then the other question on the application is how many square feet of historic material are you removing?
Right.
And that's when we did this drawing here, okay, which shows the rear of the building coming off, the sun porch coming off, and different areas where we're modifying the windows, and that number is on the application as square footage, okay, of material coming off, and that was corrected on the application. I have it here in front of me, okay, that the total square footage of what's being removed is, let me get my glasses on here. It's on a piece of paper.
While Rick is looking for the numbers, this is a problem with the application, which we've asked Jeff, who is our new principal planner, and he wrote in the staff report, which you guys have copies, hopefully you've read it, Don, and and that needs to be corrected, Rick. You've hit a nail on the head in that what they did, the previous Director of Community Development combined the applications, and it got more complicated, so.
Right, so basically
We
the
hope to
idea is
separate
that
it.
we talked with Jeff, okay, and we kind of went over it and everything, and so what I did, so that I would be prepared today, is that I added all these areas up that, you know, my draftsperson figured out all the square footages, and it's 1,219.8 square feet of historic material. But the square footage area of what's being removed is 150 square feet, floor area wise, and what's being put back on is 4 feet by 40, okay, times 3, which is 480 square feet.
But my point is that what's being demolished is greater than 25%.
No, it's not. 150 square feet,
1,219 square feet?
1,219 square feet is not square footage of area, it's just material. It's the face of the building. So
And
that's what's confusing about the
Yeah,
application.
but we consider that part of demolition of loss of historic material. And I agree with you, Rick, absolutely correct, that the application is confusing, but when we do that, we include both the floor area and the surface area in terms of loss of historic material. And we need to clarify that, but what's your point, Don? Are you saying it's more than 25%?
I'm saying it's more than 25%, so therefore it's a substantial alteration.
Okay, that's the point.
Yeah, and
But
we're not-
I would
we're not
comment.
we're
let me
not
finish,
objecting
let
to
me
the
finish.
fact
I'm in
it's
the middle of this
substantial
comment, please.
alteration.
Thank you very much. I would comment, Don, I would comment in correspondence from Sarah Korjeff. The 25% is a guidance. It's not mandatory, okay?
It's a trigger.
It's a trigger point for discussion, but it is not mandatory if the commission feels that even though it's greater than 25%, it's not a substantial alteration. So we can't be in a situation, say, 25% mandatory, go.
I totally agree.
All right.
But I'm trying to point out that
Yes.
this is more than 25%
Yes.
loss of historic material.
Yes,
Therefore, it's a substantial alteration.
I agree with you.
Okay,
Now, the
but-
question is.
But I
let me
have a
finish-
comment that
let
I
me
want to
finish,
make.
Don.
No, I have to make this
That's
comment.
a question of whether we consider that substantial alteration affects its listing on the national alteration, on the National Register. Complicated, yes.
Okay, but you have to compare apples to apples.
Yes.
Okay, so if I were to measure the roof material in square footage, meaning the area of the roof, the area of all the walls, the area of the front wall, the back wall, the side walls, and the roof, it's not 2,790 square feet because that's the square footage of the living space in the house. So if you want to tell me what 25% is, you got to make it 25% of the right number. If you're going to count the historic material by measuring the square footage of the back of the wall, then you have to count the square footage of the gable ends on both ends, and you have to count the square footage of the front of the building, and you have to count the square footage of all the roof. And if you do that, that number's going to be a lot bigger than 2,790 square feet.
Right.
So the application is confusing.
Yes, I think we agree, Rick.
Well, it's not 25% then.
It's
That's the point I'm trying to make.
It's probably more, but let me make it one more
Less.
last time, Rick. That issue of the 25% is not a mandatory referral.
That's a good distracting item.
In other words,
Let's see if we can get more.
27,000 feet or 25, yeah.
Yeah.
It could be more.
Okay, I think we're all, if I may use the term, I think we're all in violent agreement here, okay? Let's proceed with the application. And I apologize that the application is confusing, because what it says is you read the application. Shame on you.
Okay, so,
Most people don't even read the application, they just go,
okay,
okay,
so.
let's
we've pro-
proceed.
We've proposed what we think are modest, although it could be substantial. But
Okay.
they're modestly substantial changes to the building.
Got it.
And we just wanted to get some guidance from the commission members to see if we're moving in the right direction.
Let's proceed. Thank you. Do you want to say more about your changes, Rick?
No,
Basic-
we want to hear
We wanna
from
hear
the
some comments.
commissioners.
Okay,
We've stepped in the addition, 1 foot on each side, so that there's a corner board, so that when you look at the side, the original sidewall dimensions are preserved.
well, we can look at that in light of what Sarah Cordia said in the original application. Hold on, Don, you got a quickie?
I believe that Sarah suggested 2 or 3 feet, and I don't think a foot is enough.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
I have a couple of questions on, again, based on Sarah's suggestions. The next part of that, Rick talks about the roof structure associated with the addition should be lower than the ridge height of the historic building. And you explained last time what you had done with the roof, but did you make any changes in response to that suggestion?
Well, I think it happens geometrically. The last plan showed the ridges of the dormers coming in at exactly the same height as the existing ridge of the historical structure. When we kick the sidewalls in by a foot, it changes the size of the gable ends. So now those roof ridges are lower than the historical roof ridges. So
Okay.
it's probably 6 inches.
And one of the things we had discussed at the last hearing as a subject of some confusion was on the left elevation about where the driveway was coming in. I think there was,
Yeah, I was completely wrong. So, it's at ground level, and you have to take steps up to get to the first level.
okay, so you did, I guess my question is, Rick didn't make any changes with regard to that
No,
part of the building?
My statement was completely inaccurate.
We'll make sure that's in the record, just so you know.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
And,
For the first time in his
sorry.
life, Bill Riley was wrong.
And Rick, she made some comment about proposed changes to the windows on the side elevations.
Yes.
Which I guess you did make some changes.
Well, he changed it from the originals. Her comment was that on the proposed, I guess that's called the right elevation?
Well, both of them, actually.
If you look at this drawing of with the existing right side versus the current right side, those are the changes.
I'm assuming, Rick, that some of those changes were to take account of the inset, if you will, of the addition.
That would be correct. And also the fact that on the second floor, which is right here, okay, that's the master bedroom, and so when the indent goes in, the bed has to move over, and so we were trying to get some glass over top of the master bed. Otherwise, these are basically in the same position, except for this is we have to have a doorway there now based upon all the landscaping changes. This window is in its original place, and this window is in its original place, but we added another one. So when Bill talks about the comments that we get back, and this is where I went with the comments coming from Sarah, you know, if the commission said, well, it would be nice to just stay the singular window, you know, that would be something that I think we would be willing to compromise on, all right? Because then it starts to look a little bit more like the original gable end. If this window has to come out, then that's something that I can talk to the clients about, so that this ends up being closer to what it was before.
Closer to what it was before.
Exactly.
You think you could make those changes, Rick?
Well, I have the owner is here, okay, and basically what it is that I could put the double window back in again. The only thing is it would be behind the headboard of the bed. So, you know.
We're just trying to put some light inside the house.
Right.
Yeah, if you could, I think, you know, that's the major thing you see, you know, when you come. We're making extensive changes to the rear of the building when I think it's okay, but this is the streetscape here. And I think
No, it's not.
if you could, that would be agreeable to me personally.
Rick, the same thing, you made some movements on the right elevation, is that?
We did, but it's not as significant a change as this. The windows are kind of basically still in the same place. They're still about the same number of windows, but we had to put a doorway in because that's the kitchen end of the building. So we tried to keep the windows as close to what they were before, but then, of course, they have to work with the inside elevation. So this, you know, from a historical standpoint, you know, I can understand this triple A21 window setup, but on the right side, we still maintain basically double hungs, which I think is more in keeping with the historic. So, I mean, I can understand this here, which is, you know, part of the reason. I mean, this window got moved out to here because it's actually in the new addition. It's not in the old building, and that corner board differentiates it. So you had four openings on this side of the building, okay? We kind of changed these two right here. So, you know, if we were to do something to modify them to keep kind of the general look of that gable end, I think that could be accomplished.
Okay, and just one thing to clarify, that plan you're looking at is dated June 22nd, which I assume is incorrect.
Yeah, we talked
so
about that. So in other words, we're trying to make these changes fast enough to get them in, and we just didn't change the date on the plan,
Well,
but we
it
can
makes
certainly
it
change that.
confusing to somebody looking at it later, and they can't
Right.
figure out what order they came in, so.
Right.
Rick, I had one, you done?
Yep.
I have one comment, just a question for clarification, and we appreciate the fact that you attempted to move the addition back to distinguish it, you know, from the original historic building. And I guess as Don commented before he had to leave, he's going to get his COVID shot. You know, it's only back a foot, 12 inches, you know, not anything significant. Now, what was I think you had that explained previously that why you couldn't really make it much further back. Could you just go into that a
Yeah, I
little
can
bit?
go into that. And plus the fact that you have to realize that, you know, we're going through an awful lot of work here to try to, you know, increase the habitable space of this structure because, you know, historically, you know, buildings weren't that big. Dan is, what, 6'4"? 6'5". So basically the idea is that the compromise on our end, the way we looked at it, was that, you know, we had already designed all of this, okay, the building is only 40 feet long, and we're adding this 4 feet right here, and of course, we're trying to get the semblance of rooms set up, and there's a kitchen on this side over here, so it's a significant impact if you have to bring this in, you know, 2 or 3 feet, okay, it really, you know, collapses all of the space here. So our compromise was the fact that this is what we're trying to do on the inside of the building. We understood that this jog would redefine the old gable end of the building, okay, without really ruining what was happening inside the building. We don't have a lot of room to work with here, and part of the reason that we're only, I mean, Frank and I have talked many times in the past about lateral additions to historic buildings, and I'm sure that if we had had the opportunity to do something differently shaped, that we would have bumped out an L off the back of the building, but from between the floodplain, conservation, the septic system, we just had no place to go. So this is the culmination of all of the different boards as it relates to what we had to work with. So, you know, to take additional square footage out of the minimalistic amount that we're adding to the building seems to be, you know, over the top. And again, we're trying to just cooperate and compromise with the commission to get it so that, you know, when you drive down the street, you'll actually see the outline of what used to be the existing gable end of the building.
But this also reduces the size of the gables?
It'll, because we had to recenter everything here, the doors all had to be recentered, that yes, the fact that we have less area and we recentered the windows, these gable ends on the back of the building are actually smaller.
Got it. Okay, I just want to understand that. It was something I was sure.
Frank, I have one other minor point, I think. I just turned Sarah's letter over, and it says we may want to clarify what changes are proposed to the architectural details around the front entry to ensure historic features are preserved. And looking at the drawings, I don't see any obvious changes to the front entry.
Yeah, the only thing that's changed there is that I think that we're gonna put like raised panel columns on either side as opposed to what's there, but the shape of the roof and everything will remain the same.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's see, who else here? We got, Steve, any comments?
Not at this time.
Stephanie,
I
sorry.
have nothing to say.
Good. Ben?
Yes, I think that what I got from Sarah's comments were that her primary concern was to separate the new from the old. And I think they've accomplished that, and I have no objection to the plans.
Very good, thank you. Jane?
I agree with what Ben just said, but in looking at the photographs of the original building and the sides, the east, well, the right and the left side, I guess I heard you say, Rick, that you couldn't leave it like that, the way it looked originally. I'm looking at the Form B photograph, and the windows are quite different in your proposal.
Which elevation are you talking about, right or left?
It would be the left elevation, and the photograph that's on Form B, I believe, is the left elevation.
Yeah,
It's facing.
So we are changing windows on both sides of the building because we have to we're relocating really on one elevation more than we're changing. I mean, there'll be new windows with the right grille patterns and so on and so forth. And we're changing the location of the entryway, but from a historical standpoint, it's you know, the windows are the same and the A-frame over the porch is basically the same. So they're just relocating because the floor plan is changing inside the building. On the left elevation, there's probably a different style window as it pertains to the A21s that are being used in the bedroom, and that would be the thing that we would be willing to modify to get it to be more like a double hung or to
Yeah.
eliminate it.
You could do that?
Yep.
What I do is I think on the left elevation, if you could make those three little windows to the left of the chimney, if they could be like the window in the front. I mean, on the side. I mean, in other words, it would have shutters on it, and it would be 6/6.
Yeah, I think we could do that, yes.
I have a problem with all the different shapes of the window. I mean, they're all rectangular, but I mean, some of them are like the three little ones in a line, and then you have one to the left of the chimney, the hip of the chimney, but it doesn't have shutters on it. It seems to me that if you put shutters, it would sort of match the one on the upper right.
Yeah, but I think that, I looked at that on the floor plan earlier today because I thought that that might come up in today's meeting.
Not on the
I
front?
don't think that it would be that much of an issue if that was changed back to a single double hung with shutters on either side of it, so.
Okay, good.
Right, because it would look more like the Form V and a little less complicated. It's simpler. It's easier to read,
Okay.
if you know.
Thank you, Jane. All right,
Thank
any other comments? I think we're honing in on a decision to move forward with these changes, Rick.
Okay.
And I appreciate that. Okay, any other member of the public wish to speak for or against the application? Seeing none, we had no correspondence. I'm sorry?
Oh, we didn't hear from Sandy or Janet.
I'm sorry?
We didn't hear from Sandy or Janet.
Oh, yeah, any comment? I asked if there were any other comments, and there was none.
No, I think that they've done a good job incorporating Sarah's suggestions on, and I would agree with, it would look a little better with what Jane said, but I can understand wanting light in the house too, you know, so anyway, I think it's the improvements, the changes are good.
Okay. Sandy?
Gentlemen, on the proposed left elevation, if you could get a double hung on the top and eliminate, I like the three little windows, but they don't really go with the windows on the other side of the chimney, and eliminate one for a single double hung down below it, and put shutters on it. That would be my only request.
You know what's funny about the shutters? We're looking at the pictures here.
Uh-huh.
And there are no shutters.
On the right side elevation, there are no shutters at all.
Isn't that, yes.
And on the left
you're right.
side, there are shutters on the upper floors, but not on the lower floor. And on the front elevation, there are shutters on the second floor, but not on the first floor. So the shutters are kind of
They're a toss-up.
catch as catch can.
Well, I guess we're looking for your good efforts to make it more consistent.
No,
and that would be good.
Which we did on the plan.
We appreciate all the comments. All right, I think we're
Okay,
done.
thank you. Very good, Christina. You're on top. I'm glad somebody's on top.
Okay, and I'd like to make sure that everybody understands the regrading in the rear of the building. I think we explained it before. Our Board of Health regulations require a septic system the top of the septic system to be 1 foot above the flood elevation. Right now, the septic system is in the rear yard, which is several feet, maybe 10, below the flood elevation. And so when the applicants purchased the property, they were obligated to update the septic system to come into current compliance. They've held off doing that, while we go through this process. And so, but the way the septic system, excuse me, and the retaining wall have been designed, Dave Clark did the design, and it's been thoroughly vetted with the building commissioner, who thought it was excessive, but after Dave explained why it was the way it was, he's acceptable to it, and the Board of Health has approved it as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we try to stay away from, those other boards and commissions, but no, I appreciate your comment. And I know Sarah did have a comment about, understanding why, but I think we understand why.
Okay, right.
And those boards, and I think Jeff, even in his comment, his staff report, made the same thing. We have other issues here that take precedent over the historical preservation, so we have to deal with it. All right, I think we seem to have a consensus, and if there's nobody else wanted to comment and nobody from the public, we can move with a motion. We need a couple of motions here, Mr. Vice Chair. I think, why don't we start off with the historical significance, reaffirming the historical significance of the property?
Okay, I move the Chatham Historical Commission find that the structure located at 170 Main Street is historically significant because it is in whole or in part 75 years old or more and is listed on the National Register.
We have a second?
Second, Jane.
I think Jane beat you, Steph. Okay.
Right, all right.
No other discussion? Bob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes,
Jane?
Yes,
Don is absent, and I guess it was Janet.
Yes.
Thank you. The chair votes yes, thank you very much. So the second application would be referral to the Cape Cod Commission
No, we have to do
or the 158, either one.
158. Rick had asked for the proposed work to be done dated. What do you date?
What's the date you're
Wanna
going to
make-
use on those drawings, Rick? You got multiple dates.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what I'll do is I'll go back to the email that I sent to,
Why don't we use today's date?
we can, that makes no
Today's date's
difference.
fine.
Okay.
10-4, yeah.
The Chatham Historical Commission also finds that the proposed work to be done dated October 4th, 2022 will not materially diminish the historic significance of the building, and therefore the commission does not impose a demolition delay.
We have a second?
Second.
second,
I think that was a tie, but we got it. Thank you. Any other comments? None? Bob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Steph?
yes,
Jane?
yes,
Don's happening. Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. One more.
Two more, actually.
Oh, actually,
I move the Chatham Historical Commission confirms that the dwelling located at 170 Main Street is a contributing structure in the National Historic Register District.
do we have a second?
second,
Second, Jane. Any other comments? None? Bob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Steph?
yes.
Jane?
yes,
Janet?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Last but not least,
I move that the Chatham Historical Commission find that the materials presented this date showing the proposed alterations, additions do not constitute a substantial alteration to a contributing, contributing structure in the National Historic Register District, and therefore referral to the Cape Cod Commission for review is not necessary.
Second,
thank you. Very good. She's fast. Any other comments? Okay. Bob?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Steph?
aye.
Jane?
yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, thank you very much, Rick. Sorry if they got this drawn out, and, but that's the way it goes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all your efforts. We'll get you revised plans very shortly.
Yeah, if you could get them to Christina, and I think we've got to, can move forward with this one. Thank you very much, Rick, and thank you very much, Mr. Riley. Okay. We do have one or two things on our agenda. My goodness, it's 12:30.
I know. Can we have lunch served, please?
Have what?
Lunch.
Okay, next week. Under new business at CPC applications, there are going to be two applications, not for this one, but for the meeting on the 18th. We have an application from the South Chatham Village Library. They're coming with an application for some restoration work for the library, which was recently deemed a contributing structure in the National Register District. And also Chatham Marconi Maritime Center is looking for some environmentally controlled archival storage for for their historic documents. So that's the next thing. So Christina, just put that on the agenda, both. It will be South Chatham Village Library, Barbara Burrow, and Chatham Marconi Maritime Center, Bob Fishback. Okay. Under old business, very simply, I'm waiting for community development, Katie Donovan, to update, long story short, we want to update the surveys for the Form Bs, the Form Ds, and the Form Zs. Steve, I'm sorry this thing has taken on a life of its own, but it has. So, but now that we have Jeff on board, hopefully this will get it at least focused. And very simply, the Director of Community Development wants to do them all under one basic contract or situation. So hopefully we'll get some movement on that. It's been about 3 years. That's the first item. The second one is the townwide archaeological survey report. So we could proceed with the Form D for the Nickerson dig and possibly refer that to the for eligibility to the National Register. We're on a roll with National Register, and I'd like to continue it. Monomoy Theater property, he continues to finalize design, HBDC reviews it, so hopefully we'll see something more final in the next couple of weeks or a couple of months. The former Coast Guard Stage Island Coast Guard Boathouse is proceeding with design utilization of the upweller, so hopefully we're going to see that happen in the near future.
Frank, I talked to David Doherty about that recently. It just reported that it's being shored up it has been shored up for the winter according to the
Yes.
Quincy's requirements or whatever, so it's safe. The permitting is not yet happening. It's going to be delayed for quite a while, and that includes the bulkhead and the pier, and
Yes.
involves a whole bunch of other agencies, and therefore they're not looking to have anything really happening down here for
Okay, I didn't.
roughly a year or
A year plus.
spring of 2024. So.
All right, well, I'll just continue to keep it my own thing was close to my heart 15 years ago. All right, so that's where we are. Correspondence, okay. We do have a correspondence from Bill Horrocks. And while Bill's coming up, we have no change in the status of the demolition delay. But we do have a, Bill, come up, but just I'm going to get one piece of business out of the way, but please come on up. 64 Barcliff. Christina, we have to do a ratification of a administrative review?
Is that the garage, Christine?
Is that the shed?
Shed.
The
Yes,
shed.
I believe the shed.
I move that the commission ratify the determination by a couple of representatives that the building under consideration is not historic and probably not 75 years old, and that's at 64 Barcliff Avenue.
I would second that because we did look at it. Okay, so we're looking for ratification of a previous decision for the administrative review. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Bob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Ben? Ben, did we lose you?
Yes, I didn't.
Thank you.
Okay.
Steph?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Dalton's not, is absent. Janet?
Yes.
Yes, chair votes yes. By the way, guys, this administrative review process is working. If they're little applications, and if they would have come before us, you know, we'd say, why we have this? So it is working. And I'd like to thank Mr. Lear and Don Aikman, who've been doing a yeoman's job in, you know, making the site visit so we can have this happen. Bill, sorry. Okay, Mr. Bill sent us a memo on September 5th.
Hi.
It got confused,
Hi,
Bill. I
I'm,
apologized.
I'm Bill Horrocks. I live in a contributing structure in the Old Village National Register Historic District at 26 Ivy Lane. First, I won't take too much of your time today, but first I have a sort of a gift for the committee, and they're in the form of an email which should be in Frank's box now, and so this is to the chair. I am pleased to announce that yesterday, Digital Commonwealth placed online on the Internet Archive website a book entitled Old Village Historic District, Chatham, Massachusetts, 02633, National Register of Historic Places Registration Form. This 2001 application of the Chatham Historical Commission and the Old Village Association Incorporated was prepared by consultants Candace Jenkins and Bessie Friedberg, based on work done by Carol and Norm Pakin. Now this is the good part. The book can be viewed online at, and I give you the URL, where it can be downloaded by anyone free of charge. The copy, owned by the Atwood Museum of the Chatham Historical Society, was submitted for digitization. This is a complex document which lacks a useful table of contents, and I plan to produce a helpful guide to its contents, which I will forward to you.
Bill, can I just ask a quick clarification?
Please.
This is the application which was approved?
Please, I'll finish that and I'll explain. Please help by forwarding this message that you have in your email to your commission members so that they will have immediate access to this important founding document of the Old Village National Register Historic District. This is a 148-page book, which I took the copy that the Atwood Museum had and transmitted it to my friends over at the Digital Commonwealth, and now it is on the internet at Internet Archive website. And I think they did a beautiful job. This just happened yesterday, so this is the good part.
Bill, does the Atwood House still have a copy?
Frank will presumably forward the URL, which is in his email, to everybody.
I just did. I just checked. It's not here yet, but that's okay.
I gave it to Michelle this morning, but
All right. So this is the application which you guys prepared in 2001?
2001 application, the book.
Right, and which was approved.
Which was approved. It has all sorts of historical information in it.
Right.
Has pictures, has maps. It's got everything you want. It's a delightful document. But before this was done, there were only two publicly available copies in all of Chatham. One was at the Atwood Museum, and the other was at the public library, where it still is.
Well, you're kind of stealing my thunder a little bit, because, we just got the South Chatham Village listed on the National Register.
Right.
Okay, and received a very nice letter from the Secretary of the Commonwealth, William Gavin, telling us we were accepted. And it's interesting is I just asked Christina 2 days ago through Michelle, because we have ours is only 72 pages, okay? Not yours is 102 pages, but it's a big document. It has a lot of information, and it was multiple years of work done for the South Chatham Village. And I asked for copies, but we also are going to digitize it and then put it on our website. So what we'll do with your document, is we'll also put it on the Historical Commission website, the town website.
Well, you can get these documents digitized free of charge by the Digital Commonwealth. Now, their only requirement is that they are able to have the document itself provided free online to the public.
Right.
And can be downloaded by anyone. Earlier on, I got into this because I'm curator of charts at the Atwood Museum, and we have a huge collection of nautical charts, and some of them are quite large, and they were all digitized. I had them all digitized by Digital Commonwealth, so you can examine our chart collection online at the Digital Commonwealth website.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's the first thing. There's a little bit of business that was a memo I sent to you before.
Yes.
And I'd like to say a couple of things about that. I'm, of course, a member of the board of directors of the Old Village Association. And thanks for a little time here to do this. It won't take long. And I'll leave it for another time. I was pleased to see the deliberation a little bit more in the public domain. I like to see people describe their ideas and how they're arriving at their conclusions.
We can get lively. We can get lively.
Yeah, right. But it's definitely important for everybody to communicate with one another, and maybe if somebody is off base on something, you get a chance to change their mind. I don't necessarily think it's great to do it all in public, but so that's the rule, right?
That's the way the things have changed. No more smoke-filled rooms, right?
Okay, but now what I wanted to talk about is something I felt you people had left out of your considerations in an earlier hearing. Despite the near universal support in Chatham for the Old Village Historic District, it is a fragile construct. No person or entity owns or controls it. There are few laws or enforceable regulations which apply to it. While the district is thought of as a region of a town or a neighborhood, it is in reality just a collection of independent private properties upon each of which sits a structure, usually a dwelling, which was designated as either contributing or non-contributing at the time the district was formed. Preserving the district involves preserving contributing structures individually. You can't wave a wand and say, we want to keep the Old Village National Register District, but we have to keep it one structure, one contributing structure at a time. Initially, this task falls to the property owner, who has the responsibility, in return for the privilege of living in the Old Village, to keep his dwelling in good repair, and if he feels necessary to modify it, does so with minimal exterior impact. Judging what amount of change is acceptable is qualitative. My suggestion is that a modification be evaluated on the basis of similarity and recognizability with respect to the original contributing structure. Similarity involves size, height, shape, external cladding, and other significant features. A modified structure should be recognizable as the original. Visiting an historic district is a subjective experience, and so too should decisions on whether or not a contributing structure has undergone significant alteration be a subjective decision. Quantitative metrics such as percentage increase in floor space are sometimes used to determine the latter, but I feel that qualitative judgments may be sufficient in most cases when a National Register historic district is involved. The Historical Commission is focused almost, and here's the meat of this, the Historical Commission is focused almost exclusively on changes proposed for contributing structures. However, the historic district cases, in historic district cases, that may not be enough. Besides the structure itself, any modification of its setting should be considered. The owner of the property containing the contributing structure, which is undergoing modification, has control over his part of the setting. In the Chatham Historical Commission Rules and Regulations, in Section C, substantial alteration on page 8, it states, examples of alterations the Commission may feel may jeopardize a structure's individual eligibility for listing in the National Register Historic District or its status as a contributing structure are generally considered to be, and then the second bullet point in this regulation is isolation of a property and or, importantly, alteration of its setting, such that the historic character and integrity are no longer reflected in the site. Examples may include the following: introduction of parking lots, removal of subsidiary buildings, or relocation of the structure from its original site. All of that is in the regulations, which were approved by your commission a couple of years ago, I guess. Okay, now the 32 Ivy Lane hearing, that was application number 22-004, is over. But it provides an example of a case where an examination of proposed changes in setting might have been important. The contributing structure, the craftsman-style Russell bungalow, sits on a 14,330 square foot grass surface lot with plantings and shell-covered parking area. The applicants in that application proposed to add to this simple setting a two-story carriage house, 2 stone walls with steps leading down to the lower level yard in the back, and where there is space for a swimming pool and a masonry patio. Do these proposed changes reflect the historic character and integrity of the site, and do they fit in well with the adjacent properties, which are all part of the Old Village National Register Historic District? If they do not, then the proposal, according to the rule on page 8 above, might have been considered a substantial alteration, independent of the structure itself. So I just, as I'm urging the commission to look at the setting as well as the other things.
But when it came before us, there was no discussion of
I'm
a
pretty
swimming
hearing
pool.
impaired myself, so I need to.
Yeah. When it came before us, there was no picture of a swimming pool. There was no suggestion of a swimming pool or a cabana or anything like that when it came before the Historical Commission.
It was on,
No, the swimming pool?
yeah, and it was discussed.
It was on the plan, lot plan.
Yeah.
I think
which
it's
came to
not
you
anymore.
first, yeah.
Yeah, but know, Bill,
Yes.
our charge in the National Register District, in terms of what this commission has done in the past, hardscape, landscape, we have not delved into that. We have delved strictly on that particular structure, which was listed as a contributing structure. I mean, I don't want to be critical, but I appreciate your comment. What this is, the old village, as well as my South Chatham village now I can say my village, I live in South Chatham, okay?
Sure, yeah.
Is a National Register District. Now, fortunately, about 80% of the South Chatham Village National Register District is in an historic district. And if we truly, as a community, want to take a snapshot and stop any changes of significant to any properties in the old village, what should we do? We should do what you didn't do in 2001 and what we didn't do. You didn't apply as an historic district, you applied as a National Register District. Now, it's a different threshold. In order to become a National Register District, you need just a simple majority of the people in the district and no major complaints. As an historic district, now you've got to go before the town meeting, and that's a community decision, the whole town. When we decided to create the HBDC, that was a very controversial discussion, and the whole town mosted on it. So, it may be not a bad idea if we feel, you, I, other people, that too many changes are being allowed to happen because of the Historical Commission's range of authority. Maybe it's time for the old village to become an historic district. It can happen. It's work, but, that's just something else to think about it. I would also comment is that, the guidance that we get from the Cape Cod Commission relative to what we can or cannot do is pretty clear. The 25% is a guidance. Technically, if it's less than 25%, you can't refer to the Cape Cod Commission because the owner is allowed to make changes more than 25%. Unfortunately, now we've got a new planner on board here, and I keep giving him work. We have got to make that application very clear on how you calculate the 25%. I would tell you, in some communities, they also calculate the interior square footage. So we're not getting, in my view, a clear direction from the Cape Cod Commission. And it's like everything else, they keep kind of moving the goalposts for us. So there's things we could do to tighten things up. I agree with you, and that's why I wanted to have you come back here. I think my vice chair has got his finger on the button here.
I just wanted to comment, Frank. I think that, at least what I'm hearing from Bill is that his point is that that is how we've been looking at things, yet our rules and regulations say that alteration of the setting including parking lots or subsidiary buildings, or I suppose a swimming pool may be something that we could consider, that it
Well,
would change the historical character.
And you can look at that in a qualitative way.
Right.
It's not, well, we're going to measure square footage or anything, but does it fit in? Does it fit in? I mean, we're dealing with a neighborhood. There's the structure itself, which I feel should have a great deal of similarity when it's if it's changed, and also be recognizable to the original. And then there's the setting, which should be sort of in complementary, or at least in consistent with the rest of the neighborhood that it finds itself in.
Right.
And everyone loves the old village in Chatham. It's a great asset to the community. I know the zoning board of appeals feels that way, and they also have qualitative guidelines that they can use when issuing special permits that don't all just require setbacks and lot coverages.
You do understand, when we make a decision and it goes to the Board of Appeals, it's their decision, is the decision that holds. They can overrule us quite candidly. If we don't refer it to if we refer it to the Cape Cod Commission, then we have authority. If we don't refer it to the Cape Cod Commission, then the Board of Appeals can change whatever we decided.
Yeah, there are always different commissions have different sorts of rules,
Right.
but
Yeah.
these qualitative ideas that the guidance that the zoning board of appeals has for issuing special permits are written in the protective bylaw of the town.
Right.
So you can refer to that, and that's a good backup for making decisions based on those things. Does it fit in? Is it consistent with what the town wants? What the area wants, and so on. So I think that's something we all consider.
Well, you're giving us a lot of good food for thought, trust me. This is why I asked you to come back, because when I got your email the first time, I thought it was mixed in with just specifically for 305 Main Street, and I said, oops, it's not. So thank you very much for taking the time to come back to us.
Okay.
And I appreciate
You're welcome. Thank you all.
the fact that you got it digitized, because now I'm going to go get the South Chatham Village one digitized.
Yeah, I'd like to see that booklet, and if you need any help getting it digitized, I can probably, if you give me a copy, I can get
All
it
right,
done.
well, I'll let you know.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I move we adjourn.
any discussion? This was a tough one. Oh, my God, 1 o'clock. Those poor guys in the back room are dying. All right, Mr. Lear,
Yes.
Steve,
Enthusiastically, yes.
Ben? We lost him?
No, yes.
Yes. Stephanie is left. Jane?
Yes.
Don left. Sandy?
Yes.
You're voting.
Yes.
And Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much. I think